Okay, guys, got your characters ready? Let's hear your backstories.
I'm an orphan.
And
I have no family.
I know what an orphan is. Lou?
Shh, the raid's almost done. Hold on.
When you're done rating and writing weak backstories, let's talk about 5 things players do that the DMs hate. This week on the Dungeon Masters Dojo.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Masters Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters and players alike. We hope to bring you tips and tricks to elevate your game and develop the art of dungeon mastery. I'm your host, Louis Aponte, and these are your Dungeon Masters, Scott Labby and Bill Robotile. Let's enter the dojo and see what they have in store for us today. Thank you, Bill, because you interrupted me. We didn't complete the raid.
They wiped.
Guess what? Watch this. Touch of a button, and the Comcast is shut down.
No! I'll turn on my hotspot.
Okay.
Well, before we get started,
Yes.
Yes.
I think we need to do a shout out. And
yes.
Richard A., Sin, and Josh Gray bought us Sakis, our livers. Thank you.
Very much.
As do the rest of our bodies. Thank you very much for the support.
Hold on.
Thank you for the sakis.
Thank you very much. And I think it was Josh that wrote something nice.
He actually wrote a very nice
Yep.
little stretch there, so thank you very much, Josh.
Yes. And say something nice or mean. We don't care. You're buying us a Saki. So with that out of the way, thank you guys so much for your support. It's very much so appreciated.
And
Stuff
it means
like,
a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it
It does. Stuff like that means that we can maintain and upgrade equipment, which is huge because it's not cheap.
No, it's not.
Especially with Lou's tastes in equipment.
Yeah. And I can't keep working all these overtime hours to support it. So buy us Sakis if you want. Support the Dungeon Masters Dojo podcast by going over to Buy Me a Coffee and making a small contribution
Every little bit helps.
to the
and,
Dojo Coffee.
And we appreciate it because it's a validation that we're giving you what you want to hear.
yeah, that's
not
nice.
Not just us just spouting what's on the top of our heads, which we're going to do anyways, but validation that people are actually listening and want to hear what we're saying.
which is nice.
It is, very much so. So thank you.
Yep, very much so. But I think we want to hear what Scott has to say next.
In celebration of 1 year of podcasting, we are holding a giveaway of epic proportions. Everything you need to get started running games. 4 dice trays, 12 complete sets of dice, 4 Crown Royal bags, the D&D Essentials Kit, the D&D Starter Kit, Horde of the Dragon Queen D&D Adventure, the Young Adventurers Collection, Nerdarchy's Out-of-the-Box Encounters, Brass and Steel Steampunk Tabletop RPG, OSR Greats, The Rad Hack, Into the Odd, and White Box Fantastic Medieval Adventure Game. But that's not all. The Curse of Strahd Revamped is included as well. This complete list goes to one lucky winner in the U.S. We realize we may have asked a lot of you initially, so here's the new and improved way to enter the epic giveaway. Simply go to thedungeonmastersdojo.com, our home on the web, and send us a message. You will automatically be entered into the giveaway for a chance to win. After we receive 500 messages, we will draw one lucky winner. We'll see you next time in the dojo.
Well, through the magic of technology and some pretty fine editing skills, I sound knowledgeable.
You sound like you should be on a 1-900 call.
Do they still have those? Because I'm always up for making a little extra money.
We need the extra money.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
It's not quite a sake, but,
Well, I mean, with all the items we're giving away, that comes
Yeah.
out of our pockets as well.
this is true.
Yeah, and Thunder Down Under has not returned my calls, so I think that's a career option that's out for me. Unfortunately, I got a dodgy knee though. I can't do those crazy dance moves, and I don't really have the behind for the chaps anymore. So
Thank God.
I guess it's the telephone line for me, huh?
It's a telephone line for you now.
Oh, the shit I do to keep us in technology.
Wow. All right. So there's some visions.
Well, we just earned our explicit rating right out of the gate,
And normally it's me. Jeez.
Why
I'm
dilly dally? Right? Let's get right down
let's
to it.
let's get into it. 5 things players do that DMs hate.
Yes, believe it or not, there are, and this is a short list. If you were to look at Bill's list, it'd be a lot longer. I don't know do you remember for those
3-part series?
Yeah, for those of you that are our age, do you remember the Encyclopedia Britannica that almost everybody had in their home?
Yep.
That's how we did research. That was our Google. That would come close to containing Bill's list of things that players do that DMs hate. But we're going to touch the tip of the iceberg.
So go for it. Touch the tip of the iceberg.
Table talk.
Just the iceberg.
Just table talk.
Table talk.
Table talk. When you are trying to narrate.
Bill, did you?
Yeah, that artfully demonstrated by Lou.
There you go.
Yeah, table talk drives me nuts.
I think that's why I like the virtual thing now, because there's not a lot of table talk.
It's, for some reason, the virtual thing pulls the plug on the table talk because you're not sitting next to the person,
And I
so
think
you can have
that's
those
it.
side conversations.
And nobody wants to overstep somebody because they know they won't be heard.
Right.
Whereas when we're at the table and if there's table talk, now the DM, like I'm just talking to Bill, the DM could be still talking and we're not really paying attention.
Right. We're going to miss points.
Yeah.
Yep. And, it's rude. And I think sometimes players don't realize they're doing it. I don't want to say that, y'all got a bunch of rude players out there that are doing it kind of intentionally to be disruptive. I just don't think players realize they're doing it most of the time.
Well, could they be bored?
They certainly could be. They could be bored. They could be bored. They could be kind of formulating a plan with another player, especially you get 2 players that really know their stuff with spell casting, and they could be very dangerous to your bad guys, to your mobs.
As you
right?
found out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But that's awesome. That's that level of creativity that I think you really, as a DM, you need to reward that.
Curb the talking at the table.
You got to curb the table talk, especially if you're giving information that's really important to the storyline, the campaign overall, because someone's going to miss it. It'll definitely be the 2 or 3 or how many players are engaging in table talk, but that may be a distraction to some of those other players that are trying to listen,
Pay attention.
pay attention.
No, you're right. And I could see where, like you said, there's instances where let's formulate a plan. If you know there isn't being plot points put across, you can tell the game master, hey, we're going to step over here real quick and leave the table.
Yeah.
Step over in the corner just for a couple minutes. I got an idea. Come here. And we're going to step over here for a second. And the game master, wait, let me get through this first. Let them hear, the narrative that needs to go on. And then go, okay. And then, because I'm going to concentrate on these guys, and you're not there anyway, so go ahead and do what you're going to do. And pull off to the side of the table. I've done it before, and I've allowed players to do it, and it doesn't disrupt the table.
Yeah, we've done it with Scott. That was me, Matt, and somebody else. When you were
Scheming on me.
when you were done talking, he said, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Yep.
Perfect time to hatch your plans.
Yes.
Because the DM's not around, number 1.
Not even there. Yep.
And it was such a good plan. It was you know what? It was one of those things where I did not expect it.
Yeah, you had to walk away when you.
I was like, oh my God. But it's those times that are the most entertaining is when your clever players act cleverly.
Yes. Those are the ones that are talked about years past. Remember when?
And that's something that, in a situation like that's good. You can say to your DM, can we take a break?
Yep. And that's exactly what we did, if I recall.
Yeah.
We said we're going to take a break, and then I know I had a thing going on with Matt, and then I had a thing going on with Korik, and so we had multiple angles going on, but the whole thing is we said, can we take a break? So we did not interrupt you, because if we talked, like if it was me and Matt, we would have missed everything you had said.
Right.
So we use our time to say, hey, give us 5 minutes so we know what's coming up, or just give us a break, and we hatched our plan. This way it didn't interfere with you. And I think we've done that with Bill a couple times.
Yep.
And it's a good way to give a little bit of respect to your DM for the time and preparation that they put into the game, but still plan something out, and always let your players do a little planning.
Well, you can see you'll see your team, your players, kind of whispering back and forth, and as a game master, you need to be cognizant of that and go, you guys need a couple of minutes to plan. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go up and make a drink, or I'm gonna go grab some Funyuns out of the cabinet. Be aware of your table. Situational awareness. If you see your people you whispering back and forth, they're obviously scheming something. So it doesn't disrupt your game and disrupt the table. Give them that 5 minutes. Don't make them. I mean, if they ask for it, saying, hey, I got an idea. Can we have 5 minutes? Oh, great. Okay. But if you see them and you see this on the verge of that table talk starting to really interrupt and they're not paying attention, I said, tell you what, I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes so you can figure out your plans. I'm going to duck upstairs real quick and step away from the table.
I think the other point is the DM needs to really take command of his table and not let his table run him.
Yes.
Because when you guys run, for the most part, the table's always paying attention. And if we start to deviate, you guys, this is all I hear. Are you guys listening? You're going to miss something important. And then our focus is back.
No, that's what Scott does. I usually just look around and go, roll initiative.
Yes, that's true.
And like, what? What did I miss? That's why you're rolling initiative. You missed it. This is the damage you took on the surprise attack, and now we're rolling initiative because now we're in combat. And like, what?
I got your attention now, don't I?
So Scott will socialize and gentlemen, we need a couple minutes, and Bill will just come down with the hammer.
Spanking your children is not a good way of disciplining them. Take teaching moments.
It makes them learn.
There you go.
That's the differences between a butcher and a counselor. It's in the name. It's in the title. And you guys bring up a good point with that. That table talk could be relevant to the game, and in that case, that's okay. Give them that time. Sometimes it's they're shooting the breeze. They're catching up.
Did you watch that show, Bill?
I did. Hey, thanks for putting me onto that show, because I binge watched like 3 episodes.
Yeah.
All right, roll initiative.
What? But that's exactly, I think, what Scott's point. It's really about respect. There's a time to talk at the table, and there's a time to listen.
Right, and traditionally on Monday nights, though it hasn't happened in a long time, folks would get here between like a half an hour roughly before gameplay starts and hang out in the parking lot like a half an hour after it's over. That's the time to really like shoot the breeze and catch up,
Yep.
Come early if you can. If you can't, just be understanding that, when you're playing and you don't have really time to catch up.
I was big on, the game opens at 7, and at 7 o'clock, whoever's here, if you're not here, if you called me and say, hey, I'm literally just down the street, okay, I'll hang 5 minutes. But I was pretty much a stickler for punctuality. And people would come in and it's like, okay, how you doing? All right, have a seat, get out your character sheet. This is the situation. I pretty much just threw them into the fire without really giving them the opportunity to go through the happenstances of the day, and because then it starts conversations, and here you got your table talk and you haven't even started your game yet.
Right. Before you know it, you have an hour of game time left.
Right. So I kind of quelched it right from the very beginning.
Well, I think, like I said, it's taking command of your table and taking ownership of it, and not letting people just run the table.
Right. And, I tell you, it's not social hour. We're here to game, and we're
Exactly.
going to game. At social hour, we'll be in another hour when we take a break. We take a 15, and you can catch everyone up then. And then, we'll all talk in the parking lot afterwards, or we'll talk down. It's snowing out. We'll talk in the cellar. But assign times for your table talk, and that will, when they've come to play, they've come to play, and when it's time to talk, it's time to talk.
And it is a respect thing. It's a respect for your DM who's put a lot of time in the week to prepare for the game. It's respect for the other players too, who are here to have a good time. And it is a social function, but it's a social function during the game, so it's not catch up time.
Right.
And Lou brought up a great point. Maybe they're bored, right? So sometimes you'll see that table talk happening when your players are bored. And that could be from spending too much time with one player character,
Right.
not knowing when to move from one character or one half of the group to the other half of the group. I like to go like real fast when the party's split up. Okay, what are you guys doing? Here's what happens. Boom, on to the next. So you don't have that.
Kills the lag time.
Right.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I learned that from you guys. So, like on a virtual game, I think I give everybody a minute to 2 minutes to do before I call on to the next person. I give you 2 minutes to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you're going over, I'm like, okay, I'll come back to you, and I'll go to Bill. Then I'll go to Marcus, and then I'll go to Sin. Then I'll go to Larry. Then I'll go to Jared, and then Frank. However the order is. Yep. But they all get the same amount of time, because if I give Bill 10 minutes, how's that fair to everybody else?
Right.
And then you get the next person 10 minutes, next person 10 minutes. The people at the end of the line have been sitting there for 40 and 50 minutes twiddling their damn thumbs.
Exactly.
Yeah. They're on their phone rating.
Yep.
Yeah. It does give you a lot of extra time to write a decent character backstory. I've seen a lot of GMs do that when we've played those times with Huge Rod.
Yep.
Over at Hybrid. Check out his podcast, Hybrid Theory. It's a really cool podcast. This guy's smart.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
And
Beyond smart.
Yeah,
brilliant.
he's way too smart for me. He's got one of those jobs that scares me because it requires you to be so smart. And it shows in his games, when he runs his games, when he's developed the system. But he has done that kind of lightning round through the players.
Yep.
Especially when we gamed with him at Gen Con. It was quick. You got, and he laid it out. This is how much time you have, and to come up with a plan for what your action's going to be. So take that time to think about it before I get to you, because I'm going to move on to the next person.
Basically, you have a panel in a comic book.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Describe the panel.
Yep.
Boom, done. Next.
Yep, and that's exactly right. That's how it was. And the game, you may be thinking, oh my God, that's kind of a draconian approach, and it's totally not the vibe at his table. It was the fastest.
The game
4
was,
hours.
we were all action heroes.
Yeah.
So it gave the feel, the impression of everything always being action driven and urgent, and all right, we got to do this, and we'll do this, and it was sudden, quick, decisive, decisions, and it was fun. It worked very, very well, especially for his game system.
Yeah, it did very much so. He is up there in my list of great GMs. He is up there with, Scott Legault's another one who doesn't fuck around when he's running a game. It's boom, 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 and his games are incredibly fun. And it's probably the quickest 4 hours that you'll ever be engaged in.
Yeah.
But keep it going fast like that, and that'll minimize table talk because people won't have the time to get bored.
Well, you also have your particular player personalities that they need to be out in the front all the time. And when they're not, their character's not involved, the player is now getting involved with the other players. And that crosstalk, that table talk, sometimes is very distracting. We know who we're talking about.
Well, with that said, I know
We do.
Yeah, we do. But with that said, at the same time, if it's a really good player, they will know when to back down. Or not, I shouldn't say back down, but let somebody else move forward.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, but there's player personalities that when they're in character, all right, I got my 2 minutes, and that was beautiful. It's someone else's turn, and now well, why don't you do this? And then the next player, well, why don't you do this? And that's part of table talk as well.
It is, but that's up to the GM to say, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well,
but it's up to the
for newer GMs, that may be hard because they may not want to hurt. And this is where I think a lot of problems come in. They may not want to hurt somebody's feelings, but if it's somebody that they're really good friends with, they may want to say, hey, I'm going to give you that extra minute.
What's that word?
What?
Preferential treatment.
No, that F word.
For friends?
No, the other one. Feelings.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Could you explain? Could you explain that one to me?
That's when you care for something or somebody.
Oh, never mind.
I was thinking of another F word. Boy, I was way off base.
I had to look at his face just to see which word he was talking about.
But that is probably what you guys just described was table captains.
Yes.
Table captains drive me nuts. Those players that, hey, you have this spell. What you really should do if you're playing your character the right way is do this. Well, I wouldn't do that if I were you because I know that you have this skill, and in this situation, this skill is better. But you should have put way more points into dexterity if you're going to be that kind of character and made intelligence your dump stat.
I've said this many times. To me, that's the video game player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, don't you have those 2 magical items? No one was around when those were given to me. Yeah, but you have those. You could use those.
But you don't know I have them.
You don't know I have them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I do. I seen you write it on your sheet.
And
that really aggravates me, and I'll snap at them.
See, I've been lucky. I haven't had that because I have the group that we've been playing with forever, and I don't think they really do that.
No, I don't think there really is.
No, we don't have any personalities like that. I've seen it at gaming tables elsewhere where, and I haven't played D&D with a lot of females because you just didn't have girls that played D&D back in our day.
No, very few.
But I've seen guys assume that because here comes a girl at the gaming table that she's there to pick up a guy. First of all, like, geez, I'm in the market for a Mountain Dew slurping overweight neckbeard.
Supermarket? No, too big. The bar? No, I don't think I'll find them there. Yeah, jackpot.
Or that they have no idea what they're doing because they're a girl, and that's when I've seen a lot of table captaining is with female players.
Yep.
And I've known some girls that play D&D like a big old badass.
Oh,
and they crush it. But I've seen a lot of the table captaining with girls.
I think the only time I've seen table captaining is with new players, and I'm just going by with my daughter and her friends. They're all playing together for like the second time, and they're like, well, you can do this. You have these. I'm like, no, you can't. She's got to figure this out on her own.
Yeah.
So it's really up to the DM to mentor and train the people. This is your character. This is what you should be looking at. Not their stats or what they have. Now, if you know they can do something, you can suggest, hey, I think you can hide in shadows and go around the corner and get something, but you should not be telling them what they can use or can't do because you don't know what they can or can't do.
Right.
To that point, too, if you have new players and one of them's grasping the rules a little quicker than the others, that's going to turn into your table captain. If you don't reel them in.
Yep.
Oh no, you have, and just like Scott described, he's going to go or she's going to go around and no, you have this and you should do that and you have this skill. Don't forget about that magic item. And it's like stop.
I think exactly what you just mentioned. I had that with my son and a couple of his friends. They, one of them played D&D for a while. The other one was new, and my son was new. And they were like, and my son's friend was like, "Hey, you can do this, this, and this." I'm like, "No, he can do whatever he thinks is on his sheet, and I will tell him if he can or cannot do it."
Yep.
It's really about mentoring and training them.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. And there's a lot more leeway that I'll give to younger, especially young kids that are learning the game. And when they table captain, it's probably probably because they're excited. It's
Well,
like,
and they're
you can do this.
and they're trying to help.
Yes,
they
and
think
they're being
they
helpful.
think they're being helpful, but it's the beginning of a bad habit.
But that
Right,
also,
right.
translate into some of the, I won't say kids, but to the older folks, I should say older kids, because everybody underneath me is a kid.
You're talking like me.
Yeah, well, I'm a kid to you.
yeah, but it's true.
Yeah.
But, they still do the same thing. We just have to, as DMs, just to make sure that you're telling them, hey, slow down, take a breath, and let them work their own character.
There you go. The piece of paper in front of you is you. And if they try, well, I tell you what's in my left pocket? What's in my left pocket? I don't know. Why? But I don't know. Then how do you know what they have in their sheet? Are you looking through their pockets? Are you looking through their pack?
That's a good point.
Concentrate on your character sheet. That's you. The rest of the world, is everything else. That piece of paper is the only thing you pay attention to.
And it is the DM's job to kind of nip that in the bud before it becomes a habit and explain it. You got to let people develop their own play style. If you look at our gaming tables, there's a bunch of different play styles.
Eclectic
bunch, yeah. And it's, Lou's play style is very different than Coric's, who's very different than Jared's, who's very different than Frank's. Mm-hmm. And Sin's play style is very different
from Sin's.
From every player on the planet. So it's one of those things where you could give the same exact character to every one of those players, and their interpretation and what they do with it is going to be vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
Vastly different. So you have to nip that in the bud, because they're going to be hemmed into a play style that doesn't suit their personality and think, oh, well, I can only play it this way, and that is not it at all.
So let's move on to the next point. Distracting behavior. Lou,
Yeah.
put your phone away.
Well, I'm sorry.
Put your damn phone away.
I'm putting it away. Hold on. I just got to send us one more message.
I am turning off the broadband.
Instagram, social media. We got to do it.
Distracting behavior.
Yeah, the random dice rolling, or the building of the dice fortress, or the I'm guilty of this. I constantly want to tap.
You're a pencil tapper?
Yeah.
You and Sin both.
Yeah, I was about to say
Sin's
the
a
same thing,
pencil
yep.
tapper too.
Or just like checking your cell phone, watching videos.
Sorry.
Anything that is distracting and not in the game.
Right. Because you're focused on that one thing, but I can guarantee someone else is focused on what you're doing too.
Yeah, and it's probably more
because
than
that's
just
why it's
one other
distracting.
person. Yep, exactly. And it might be the DM who derails the DM story. You get a lull in the action or the presentation of the adventure, the scenario for the week, and now everybody's derailed.
Mm-hmm. I think the easiest way is just gently point this out to somebody. Hey, do me a favor. You're tapping your pen on the table. Could you just not do that? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Have everybody wear socks on their hands at the table so they can't manipulate objects like pencils or pens or.
Oh no, because then it's like webbing. They'll get even more dice in their hand.
I'll say, how would we roll our dice?
Now that would be problematic.
You think a D4 stuff to pick up now?
Yeah, I would.
Put a wool sock on your hand and try to pick up a D4.
No, but again, I think this one is really the GM needs to, at least whether it be pulling them to the side or just say, hey, we need to get back on focus and stop. You with your tapping, you with your phone.
Mm-hmm.
It's really up to them. Even though it can be hard because you can hurt somebody's feelings.
It's table management.
Here, using the F word again.
But I think that I don't think that you run the risk of hurting anybody's feelings if you have a reasonable, respectable conversation with them and point something out maybe that they may not be aware of. I noticed that you're constantly tapping your pencil. I don't know if you noticed that.
Right, but that could be coming from a DM or GM who is not afraid to say certain things, but those who are timid and are just taking this up for the first time, they may not know how to approach that. So that at that point, you should say, we'll take a 5-minute break and then talk to them on the side.
Yep.
The key to having those, what some people may refer to as difficult conversations, is just understanding that if you were that person, how would you want the other individual to approach you about this? You know, what would make you feel okay about having that conversation if you were on the receiving end of it, and go from there? Because usually it's going to work out well if you kind of put yourself in the other person's, you know, position. Give it a little bit of thought, you know, pick up the phone and call them. Hey, I want to talk about, you know, the Monday night game.
Preferably not at the table.
Right. You know, this was really distracting what you were doing. I don't know if you were aware of it or not. And a lot of times I think they may not be aware.
Oh, yeah, it's just nervous habits.
Right. They're doodling, or they're building the little dice fortress there. It's something that is probably just subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And they may have to work on it. You know, you may not come in on the next Monday night or whenever your game night is and have it be all better. It may be a little better.
Oh, it'll be progressive.
Right. Right. Not every player is intentionally disruptive or a bad fit for your group. Eventually you're going to run across one that is.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's when the conversations get a little harder, when they're constantly being distracting or table captaining. And then those hard conversations get a little harder, but they still need to be had.
Then they call in Bill.
With his Vulcan lack of feelings.
Sorry, I was distracted.
All right, how about the next one? Little or no character backstory.
Shame on you, Scott.
I'm an orphan. All right, what about the rest of your backstory? That's my backstory. I'm an orphan.
Yep.
I hate that.
Everybody's dead. Whole village is dead. I'm seeking revenge on someone.
I don't even know what to say.
Just whatever killed the village, just send them back in. All right, there's
know
only one little kid. It should be easy to dust him off. Okay, next character.
I know exactly what to say. Go back and listen to our episode on character backstories with Matthew Fillion.
Definitely.
One of my favorite authors.
Yep.
And he knows backstories because he writes for a living. And that was a good one. Matt's a good friend of the podcast, and we enjoy having him on.
He frequents the dojo.
He does. And he is a DM, a fine DM in his own right. And I'm sure he's run across some of these things. That
Every DM
yes.
has come across these, but the backstory. When you build your character, you're assigning a personality to that character, that piece of paper. And hopefully it's not just a regeneration of the last several characters and the only thing that's changed is the name. Try to put a little bit more into it, but that's the lifeblood and the resource you're going to go to build your character and continue to develop your character. It's also the place where the game master gets information to include you into the plot story.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing. If you want to integrate a character into the overarching plot of the campaign, you have to have something of substance.
Yes.
In the backstory.
Episode 1. The first episode of everything is usually like, oh, Jesus, the first episode sucked because you got to find out where everyone came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know when I write a backstory, I usually talk to Bill or Scott and say, how does this work? And then we will work on it together.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to sometimes come up with different backstories for, we've played, probably 30 characters. So usually I'll talk to Bill or Scott and say, hey, how does this feel? Or how does this fit in? And they'll help me, mold that backstory into what we think is a good fit for the campaign.
Yeah, and if you want like full player engagement, as a player, I'm hoping you do. I'm hoping that you want more than just a hex crawl or a dungeon crawl. You want something that's really immersive, and you really want to see bits and pieces of your character's story in the campaign to make it feel like a real thing and have that investment as a player in the story so that you could be a part of that kind of collaborative storytelling that makes the hobby unique amongst all these other hobbies that are out there.
Yep.
But
I had a point and I completely lost it.
That's old age kicking in.
Yeah, it is.
Or
Yeah.
it has kicked in.
Don't mind me. I was over here enjoying a mental margarita.
when you don't give anything for the DM to kind of sink their teeth in, you do yourself a huge disservice.
Yeah, it's tough to develop your character when there's nothing to develop upon. And like
Yeah.
Lou said, he talks to the game masters because your backstory might not fit at all into the geography or the demographic of the story you've written. And we'll flash back to, we've mentioned this same example before, where, okay, everyone bring an elf, and someone shows up with a orc barbarian. It's like, I said bring an elf, but this is what I want to play.
Yep. Misinterpreted the memo,
Yeah.
I guess.
So your backstory is going to help integrate not only to the story, but to other characters as well.
Yeah, it is. It's going to explain a lot of the interactions
Yes.
that happen with other player characters and NPCs. There's a tremendous amount of gratification as a GM to see the look on a player's face when you integrate their backstory in some way, shape, or form into the campaign. And I'll bring up the example of Korik's character, Iskander. Iskander was a librarian. Korik's a very clever player. He plays his classes it's a rogue, his character, but she was a librarian with rogue like skills.
Mm-hmm.
But primarily a librarian, a learned person, and she learned from a wizard who taught her a little bit of wizardry, and that was it. And then we brought him into the end of one of our story arcs, and he turned out to be kind of working with the bad guys. And they had happened upon a few magic items, and one of them was this elemental that when you gave it a command to attack someone, when you mentioned a name, it would not stop trying to find that person and attack them until they've already found them and attacked them. So the party's making an escape because they were double-crossed, and before Iskander goes into this portal, she whispers her name into this little figurine. He turns into a big rock elemental and goes after her old mentor. And like 2 years later, we were playing virtually after the pandemic, and I worked that into the little story arc we were working on. And he shows up again, but he's all marred up on one side because the elemental finally caught up with him when he was sleeping. and got him. And there was a look on Korik's face of great satisfaction and pleasure, having known that, okay, my backstory's become a part of the overall story arc. He's involved in two of the scenarios that I've been involved in. My elemental caught up with him, didn't finish the job, but okay, left a mark. And then she had the opportunity to have a final showdown with him. And my dice in traditional fashion were rubbish, and Iskander smoked them. I just rolled so poorly, and he played so well.
Ah, the sweet flavor of vindication.
Yes, and it's very nice to see as a GM see that look of happiness and enjoyment from one of your players. It could be very, very gratifying.
It all stemmed from a nice backstory.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a backstory that was lengthy.
No, but it was a point in the backstory that became it grew its own life.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a big elaborate backstory. I think Korik wrote something, maybe a paragraph, and that's really it, right?
Yeah,
you need a good chunk of information for the DM to work on, but you don't need to develop the character right out of the gate like you're writing a novel.
I know I'm good for anywhere between 3 to 5 pages on my backstory, on average.
Yeah, Tom will give you War and Peace.
Yeah, he will
on his character backstory, and it's detailed. like really, really, really detailed, and it's well written too.
Yep. But yeah, it gives you more than enough to work with, but something. Even if it's just a couple paragraphs, you have to have a backstory, because no backstory, you do not want to leave it in the game master's hands, especially depending on who your game master is. And that brings us to our next point. If you don't have any kind of backstory, how are you going to get invested in your characters or the story?
Right. And that's one of those things that's going to keep it from happening. Characters that aren't invested, right? DMs hate that. It's like I put together all this stuff. I've put forth all this energy, and there's a player or two at the table that just aren't invested in it.
It's like they're showing up and punching the clock.
Yeah, exactly. I'm waiting till the end of the day. I'm going through my emotions, and then I'm going to bounce. And it may be because they didn't pay very close attention during session 0. Maybe you didn't have a session 0. If you didn't have a session 0, you should. It's important.
Shame on you.
Yes. Or they're just like, you know what, this is the kind of game I want to play, and whether or not you're running it doesn't matter. I will sit in the corner and be upset that this isn't the game that I really, really want. And instead of doing that, go find that game you really want.
Right. Because all you're doing is dragging down the table.
Yeah.
You're being a distraction by not doing anything, not contributing.
Yep. And it could be very, very distracting to the rest of the players, where they're putting forth a lot of effort and you're just sitting there. And it all goes back to your actions affect everybody else at the table's enjoyment. And it could also be maybe they're bored. Maybe it's not moving fast enough.
Okay.
Well, could it be that the expectations were set differently than what's being actually played out on the table?
That could be it too. That could very, very well be it. Maybe you got, and we're talking about things that players do that DMs hate, not the other way around.
Right.
But I imagine one of those things that DMs do that players must really despise is when they lay out what kind of campaign is going to be run during session 0, and then they switch gears in between session 0 and session 1. Or maybe 6 months into it, it's like, okay, this is like a slapstick comedy now instead of a dark, gritty,
Batman-esque.
type of campaign.
Well, it could be they came from another table too, and there it's all combat, hack and slash, and then all of a sudden it's very story driven, or vice versa. You go into a very story driven, and it's nothing but hack and slash. Or where's the development? XPs is not development,
Right?
It's advancement,
Yeah,
but it's not development.
That's the player's inability to adapt, is what I'll call it.
But with new players, they may not have the skill set to do it.
Yep, you're 100% correct on that.
Every table is kind of like a subculture, right? Within the gaming community, and every table has their their culture, their expectations, their norms and whatever have you. And it's sometimes difficult for someone to come from the outside into a table that's been together for a while and assimilate.
Well, we've seen a number of times, even our group where everyone knows everyone. You have the same 6 people show up for 6 weeks, and one person can't make it, but someone else can for the next 3. The dynamic of the table has changed entirely.
Totally.
From that one person. The majority is still there, but that one person shows up and the dynamic of the table changes.
Yeah, and if you've played with someone, because I've been in situations where I've played with someone for years and then not played with them for a long period of time, developed like a new table, and then they've come and visited the table, and it's like they're a brand new player.
Yeah.
The dynamic is thrown because their D&D is just played differently. It doesn't mean they're doing it wrong. It just means that it's difficult for them to assimilate because the play styles are so different. You know, the climate at the table is different.
Now, if they're a skilled player, they're going to sit back. They're going to kind of ease into the table and get their bearings so they can figure out how it, and it's a little bit more easy, considerably more easy to get invested in the table and the character if you as a player sit back and observe first. Don't try to monkey wrench yourself in. Just kind of like, I haven't played in a while, so I'm just kind of easing back and just getting the feel of the table. The other players will understand. You know, interject where you think you need to interject, but as a player, you just kind of don't just go in there. You know, well, this is how I used to play it. Okay, but that's obviously not how we're doing it now. And we're talking about things that the players are going to do that the DMs hate, and they get in there, and all of a sudden now you're almost back to table captaining again, where it's like, well, no, this is how you're supposed to do it. No, there is no supposed. There is no right or wrong. There's your way, and there's our way, and those ways aren't jiving. So you as the player need to take a step back, and it's not the table's responsibility to make sure you fit. You need to make sure you change your style to fit the table.
When in Rome, you do as the Romans, or so the saying goes. I think that's the double-edged nature of our hobby, is that the thing that makes it great is that you can, the rules as they are not the be-all, end-all for the game, right? They're guidelines. So every group, every table, whatever have you, is going to have their own unique house rules, the way they do things. And that's one of the wonderful things about the hobby. On the flip side, what that does is you find very different table cultures all over the place. And it could be kind of like culture shock for some individuals, and sometimes when you look at the way, if you're a new player on a different table, you look at the different play styles, and it's something that's vastly different than what you're used to.
It doesn't even have to be a new player. If you've played with the same group for 20 years, your veteran player is kind of ingrained into a style.
Yep. Yeah.
And all of a sudden that table fell apart. Oh, I'm going to go to another one. Maybe you moved. Maybe your job changed, or in a time frame, or days off have changed. Oh, there's another group I can game with. Yes, I can keep gaming. But you're a creature of habit now. And it's a little difficult, even for the experienced players, to try to change and fit into this slower pace or faster paced, or there's a little bit more housekeeping in this game, or there's a lot more combat in this game. It's not the style you're used to. And you, as a veteran player, may feel inclined or find it necessary to try to force your way in, or force the table to play your style as opposed to the other way around. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a new player.
Right. It could be just new to the table.
New to the table, right.
And
you're not new, you're just new to us.
Yeah, you know this as well as I do, that the older you get, the more set in your ways you get, and sometimes it's a little harder to be flexible.
Hell no. I am like a ninja. I am so flexible.
You're like a 4x4 chunk of wood. Or
pressure treated,
or a concrete pylon.
I could see on occasion where you might think that.
On occasion. Yeah,
concrete's been known to sway in the wind.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, it breaks.
Tornadoes, but yeah.
But you'll run into these. The good example is sitting at a table run by a GM at a convention.
Yes,
right. You will get to sample a ton of different GM styles. Some very similar to yours. Some very, very different. Very different.
That's the one thing I miss about the RPGA. Back in the heyday, the 80s and 90s, you had the Role Player Gamers Association, and you would go, and it was basically a PvP at every table. And it's right, who can outperform, who knew the rules better, and who played the best, who stuck to their character, and and you graded everybody, and you got points, and you got awards for the higher points and things like that. So it became a very PvP, get your experience points thing. But you were constantly being exposed to different game masters, different play styles. And I think the vast amount of experience that I got was out of that, being able to indoctrinate myself into any game system, any table. I could sit down and be comfortable. I could sit down at anything, and within moments, okay, the rules, yep, got them. I'm good. Let's play this. Let's play the shit out of this. And I attribute that to those days.
Yeah, I had an experience very, very similar to that. I went to Carnage with Chet, and we had all our games set up, and it was a convention, the first live convention for Carnage since the pandemic. So there were a lot of games that were canceled. GMs just didn't feel comfortable. They weren't agreeing with the mask mandates, whatever have you. But our game got canceled, one of our games. So we're wandering around, and I'm looking on tabletop events to see if there's anything open. And I found this game and there was like nobody signed up for it. I was like, okay, this will be it. And it was a game where you played house cats. So I said, hey, dude, you want to go make believe we're house cats? And he's like, well, okay, I guess so. So we went and sat down at this table with this GM who's a very, very different GM than me or you or any of the other GMs that I know or have gamed with. And we selected our characters who were house cats and had a fucking great time. It was a sleeper is what it was.
Yeah.
This guy ran his games very, very different than I would have. And it was fun. It was crazy fun. I mean, we fought a turkey.
Gobble, gobble.
And a skunk. And zombies and ghouls. It was off the wall, but it was a good time. I don't know what my point in all that is. But
the point is investing yourself in your character and in the story. And the more experience you get, the easier it is going to be for you to indoctrinate yourself into another story, into another table, with a new group, a new spin with the old group, and being able to adapt yourself to that character, to that storyline, to that plot line, and run with it. And be comfortable and have the people around you be comfortable with it as well. And I think a lot of that does come with experience, if not experience, an open mind. Being willing to do that. And I think that's where the important part is.
Well said.
And that's 5 things players do that DMs hate. We'll see you next time in the dojo. That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.